Okay, to get started, I think it's useful to just take a look at some of Pablo Picasso's work to understand how his work evolved over time. He was a very talented artist, very masterful, and could really work in so many different materials and mediums. Here he is at 15 years old, creating what we call a self-portrait. Fairly realistic. When he becomes 25, he starts to simplify the way his portraits look. They take on a more geometric quality. And then eventually, as he gets older, he turns into more of a cubist world, where you see different viewpoints combined into one image, where you see a profile of his face here, yet you see a frontal version of it here, combined together. Well, that's what we're going to do today when we create a combination of a sun and a moon combining together in both profile and frontal, almost like a Picasso. So what are you going to need today? You're going to need a pencil. I always think it's helpful to have an eraser, a plate or something round you can trace. This is just a lunch plate that I took out of my kitchen cabinet. And then, of course, you're going to need something to color with. Now, I love these highlighters, so I'm going to be using some fun highlighters. You're probably going to want a black marker for outlining purposes. If you don't have highlighters, you can just use regular markers, whatever you have. And of course, I also love color pencils. So if you don't have markers, color pencils or crayons are a great substitute. Why don't we go ahead and get started now? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to use copy paper. It's just the regular paper you might put in your printer. So it's nothing fancy here that we're working with. We're going to trace a circle. Now notice my paper starts here, and my paper is just an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So I just want to make sure I put it pretty much, this plate, any circle that you plan to trace, right in the center of your paper. So I'm going to hold that plate down and I'm going to do an outline. Now, within that outline, we're going to add a crescent moon. So we're just going to lightly sketch that crescent moon coming in at a curve right inside the circle. And then I'm just going to go back and add a bit of a nose coming in like that, so that we really do get that profile of a face. So there's my crescent moon. This side will be my sun. Now I'm going to look for the height of my eyes, which is usually about center, maybe a little bit lower or higher, depending on how you draw it. I'm going to draw sort of a leaf shape for this eye, and that's the eye that's looking directly at us. So that will have the iris and the pupil looking right at us. Okay, and I'm going to add a little eyebrow and some lashes coming off that eye and some lashes coming off the bottom. Over here, I'm going to move my pencil directly over to about this point, and I'm going to make this eye in profile, which means we're going to get that side view of the eye. So it's sort of an ellipse here. We're going to add some lashes on this one too, but the lashes are coming out at a different angle, and you could put a pupil right there. So that's basically the beginning of our combined portrait. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn our attention over to the sun, and we're going to add some rays. Now the rays can go any way you want. I just sort of like to make mine sort of like flames coming out or leaves, almost like picking up the shape in the eye, like that. And here. And here. On this side, rather than put rays, we're just going to put some like waves, like wind waves coming out here, like this, just different lengths of waves coming out. And then what I like to do is put some stars. And then we're going to go back and add the mouth. I realized we did the eyes, but we didn't do the mouth. So we'll do that in a moment. So we're going to put stars. If you just stick with making triangles, stars are really not that hard to make. So I'm going to make some a little bit bigger, some maybe a little bit smaller. I just keep making triangles that connect to get my stars looking the way they need to look. And maybe one more down here. And maybe just another smaller wave down here. And I'm going to put a line right here separating the sun and the moon like that. Let's go back and add that mouth because I forgot to do that before. So we're going to start the mouth like the mouth is meeting right here. So we're going to come over here just a little bit. Let me erase that little bit of a line there. Like a little smile, almost like a Mona Lisa, just sort of not really quite the smile. And then we're going to come over here and finish it like that, kind of mysterious. But it has a mouth on both sides. It goes right there between, it separates. And there we go. Now here at the top, I'm going to put a line separating the sun and moon. I'm going to come straight down and make it basically where the moon ends on this side. Let that last ray go in. So here's our drawing. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do an outline, and I'll come back and show you this outline with black marker, and then we'll get into the color. Okay, so most of the sun and moon have been outlined, but there's a few extra details I've decided I'm going to add just to add some visual interest. For instance, you think about the moon being, they say, like sliced Swiss cheese. So I'm going to add some circles to add that kind of cheese reference onto my picture. And we're going to color those in later. Put a couple here. I added an eyebrow above this eye. Now I think I'm going to just add some lines to divide up these wind lines, these sort of wavy lines that suggest a kind of wind blowing on the moon side, like this. And then on this side, I'm going to draw a line dividing the rays, each individual ray of the sun. And then what I'm going to do is just create a kind of a pattern that looks almost like arrows going up the sun. Again, this is all for added visual interest. And it makes it a nice way to introduce some patterns into the rays of the sun. Like this. And you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to just make that ray go off. So there's that. I've added a little target underneath the eye here. And yeah, so I think we're ready for color. So I'm going to start coloring to show you some of the palette I plan to use. This pretty light blue, some greens, and actually I'm going to introduce a Sharpie because I want a really dense blue over here too. So you'll notice these blues and greens are what we call, and this purple, cool colors. They're in the cold color family. And so those are the colors I would use on maybe the moon side. On the sun side, since it is a very warm family of colors, I want to have the yellow, I think the pink. I love this neon orange. Again, I'm going to grab some Sharpies too, so I have some red, yellow, orange, oh, and of course, Got to have that hot pink. So we have a nice range of warm for the sun and cool for the moon. I think that's going to give it a nice contrast between the two. So I'm going to put my markers aside. And again, crayons, markers, color pencils, any of these will work great. And I like to start off by coloring in my moon shape with this really fun, vibrant yellow, because it's neon and that just is always fun. And if you happen to have a blacklight flashlight at home, you can actually get a wonderful glow from this when your work is done. So I'm just going to color this in and make that sun really gorgeous. Now you might want to make your sun orange. You could use a really pretty neon orange like this, or like this, or you could even use a regular orange, or maybe you want to mix the colors. You can do whatever you like on your drawing. I'm just choosing to make the side of my sun in this color because I like it. Now, another thing to keep in mind when you're working with marker and you're trying to fill a whole page, even though this is only an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, you can use a lot of marker color up. So sometimes it's a good idea, if you can, to have an extra marker in the same color ready to go. So if your marker starts sort of, quitting on you, running out of color, like I have an additional neon right there ready to go if I need it. But I'm almost done with this side of the sun, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Like this. Just got a little bit more to do up here. And if I accidentally go out of my lines, no biggie. Actually, nice thing about the neon markers is that they blend really well. They look really pretty even if they overlap, and you can get some subtle color changes. And that can be a really good look. So I got that really, really nice neon over here. I'm just going to fill in any areas I may have gone a little lighter on. And there you go. A couple little areas I missed. There's that neon sun. Now here's something fun you can also do is you can, I think I'm going to do the orange first. As I just said a moment ago, you can overlap, get some nice color effects by tracing around on top. Gives that eye some detail, some definition. So I'm going to take some red over here. And I think I'm going to make this sun have a really vibrant red eye. Again, in the warm color family. And then I'm going to go back and use my black for more of a traditional pupil, but I'm going to leave a little highlight. I like to leave a little highlight in the eye right there. Now, before I finish this side of the sun, let's go over to the moon side. And I really like the idea of using a pretty blue. So I think I'm going to use this pale blue right here for this side of the picture. And again, what I like about it is because it's blue, it's a cool contrast to the bright lemony yellow on the other side. So again, I'm using highlighters, regular markers, color pencils. And you know what I also like to do is I actually like to combine both. Like maybe I'll use some marker for part of my picture, and then I might introduce some color pencil as well. So I'm just going to use my highlighter. The moon side is not quite as large. Let's try this one. Get this one in here a little bit as I'm running low a little bit with one highlighter, I can come in with another one, and I can keep working, because highlighters, you know, they can run out of ink. There's some tricks I know people use where they add a little water, or, you know, sometimes people who want to recycle old markers will soak them in water, and you know what they get? They get watercolors. And that can be kind of cool too, is to get some watercolors made out of old markers. So it's like you're recycling. And I'm gonna go around that circle. See how I went over that little circle a little bit? That's not gonna bother me because I have plans for adding some more intense colors into the circle. So I'm not gonna worry too much about that. Come over here, finish the other half of this crescent style moon right here. Ooh, the colors are really looking good now. I really like the contrast. And I think that was another thing that appealed to people about Picasso's work, as unexpected as it was. There are these wonderful contrasts in color, warm and cool. The fact that he has a frontal eye versus a profile feature of the eye. And it really made for some masterful work. I'm just gonna bring this down a little bit more. Almost there, look at that. I had just enough blue to finish that off. Great. Okay, so to make some of these shapes pop, I'm gonna introduce some green. Some of that fun lime green. And I have that darker blue I'm going to use for the iris. And we already have the pupil in black. So we're going to do this. Actually, I'm not going to use darker green there. I'm going to use a dark blue, a purple for the eye, and or the iris. And I'm going to use a dark blue for the inside of this. These little dots I made on the moon. And I'm going to bring that purple that I just mentioned in for the iris. So again, we have that wonderful cool colors versus warm colors. We're going to use this purple also on the mouth because it seems like just using purple on that eye is just not enough. So I want to bring it over here. And we're going to use some orange to highlight around that target-like cheek on the sun side. Okay, so we got a nice circle there. Now we're going to bring in that fun hot pink, and that picks up any little bit of orange that happened to go in there. Now you can, again, you might say, you know what, I want to mix warm and cool colors on my sun side, and I want to mix warm and cool colors on my moon side, and that's absolutely fine. You take it any direction you want. I'm going to bring some of that nice red back, because that red, again, is a really powerful contrast next to the pink, but still remains in that nice warm color family. So I'm going to fill in my sun here on the cheek. Bring in back to that really fun yellow that we used on the sun, and then a little bit of orange right here in the middle. As for the cheek, I'm going to do a little, the lip, I'm going to do a little bit of outlining with the orange. And I'll add an outline maybe on the other side too. And I'm going to use that hot pink, which seems appropriate, for ellipse on the sun side. Like that. So already we have the face pretty much blocked in, okay? Now let's think about creating some patterns in the rays of the sun. I really like the idea of alternating like a pink with a red. So if this is pink, that's going to be red. This will be red. This will be pink. So that is the pattern I'm going to do there. I'm going to add red over here and red up here, because remember, I'm trying to make a fun pattern in the warm tone. So if I have pink there, I'm going to do red here. I'm not going to do the background yet. Keep my pink nearby. Okay, so the next one, since I started with pink on this side, I'm going to do that here again. I'm going to put the red over here. Sometimes you can do all of the one color and then go back and do the other. So if this is red, that's going to be pink. This will be red up here. Like that. So again, not all highlighters. I'm not just using highlighters here. And then I'm going to do red up here, because we're alternating. If it's easier for you to remember to do the red, then the pink, then the red, then the pink, you can do that too. I'm going to come over here. Now after I finish this one ray, I'm going to go to the other side and show you the colors I decided to use on the other side, because what I want to do is actually finish this off camera and let you fill in your own. So here is the pink up here again for this ray, and one more time right here for this ray, and there you go. There's that. On this side, we're going to stick with the cool colors. So we're going to go with some light green, and we're going to use some dark green. So let's get started with a similar pattern, dark, light. Dark, light, and dark, light. I don't want the stars to be the same because I think that would be kind of boring. So for the stars, I'm going to do a pale blue like in the moon. And then we'll bring that purple back to do the sky. So I'm just going around and doing the dark green on these little wind swirls. Like this. I'll show you the light green and the colors I plan to use to finish this. Then I'm going to shut the camera and bring it back as I'm finishing up the picture. Oh, one more here. Down here like that. Okay, so the light green is just going to be that highlighter green that I was using earlier, right here. Okay, so you can see where that's going. Now for the stars, I'm going to use the pale blue, which is the color of the moon. So it's a good idea to take a color and repeat it throughout a project, or to use it in a pop of brightness or darkness and isolate it. That helps to draw the viewer's eye in. So I'm not going to do all the stars. I'm just going to finish this last one. What I plan to do for the background in this side will be a purple sky, as you can see right here. Over here, you've seen what I've started with the red and pink rays. The background is going to be a vibrant orange. So again, sticking with the warm tones over here, the cool tones over here. The outlining is done. I'm going to stop here and I'll return to show you the finished sun and moon picture. So have fun with your markers, get started, and we'll finish up. So welcome back. So as you see here, I have completed the background with all the purple. We have our blue stars, beautiful blue crescent moon, gorgeous warm yellow sun on the other side with its radiating rays of warmth with the reds and the pinks. The bright orange is a beautiful foil. I also took some orange and I copied this outlining trick to make the yellow pop even more on this side. And I do hope that you take the opportunity to finish your picture, that you enjoy creating it, and really understand and appreciate the beautiful cubist feeling that Picasso invented and brought to us, and enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me for this program, and take care.